Hello and good afternoon to everybody. I'm your host, Kashik Walke. Thank you for joining us for today's Pathos webinar, Introduction to Rating Assessment Enumeration. Before we get started, please let me take a few minutes to introduce Patho. Patho is a research-powered cybersecurity consulting firm. We have decade-long track record with a singular focus on cybersecurity. Patho's impact is delivered every day through our three verticals. Number one, community and conference. Patho runs hardware.io, a hardware security focused conference along with other initiatives. Number two, consulting and training. We primarily focus on offensive security assessments. Number three, products. Patho has also released two products in a private beta trials, exploiting a firmware analysis framework and CloudFirst, an advanced fuzzing framework. This slide is an overview of various consulting assessments we execute for our customers across the globe. We have delivered talks and workshops worldwide in some of the top security conferences like Black Hang and DEFCON. This has been our decade-long impact to contribute to the robust cybersecurity in India and globally. Without further ado, let's get started with our webinar. Today's speaker, Rishikesh, is an red team security researcher at Fire. You can read about his many wonderful accomplishments on this slide. Before I hand over to Rishikesh, a few housekeeping tips. Please be on mute. If you have questions, you can write it in the chat box. We will answer the questions during the few intervals or towards the end of the webinar. A recording will be released later via LinkedIn page. So please make sure you are following Patho. Rishikesh, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Prashik. Hi, everyone. So yeah, let me just share my screen. Yeah. Is the presentation visible?
Yes, it is visible.
All right, then. Yeah. So, and am I audible? Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, hi, guys. Today, we will be talking about a basic of red team assessment. We can say that it's the first phase when it comes to the red team assessment. That is the enumeration phase. So yeah, we'll be talking about various things about red team today. We'll be discussing about it. So this is an overview of what we'll be doing. We'll be talking about what the scope of red team assessment is, how to set it up. We'll be talking about in brief, not in brief, just an overview about the phases of red teaming. Then we'll be talking more about enumeration. Why do we need it? What are the techniques and scope? And then once the enumeration is done, then what comes next? In the end, we'll be taking questions, and so yeah, let's dive right in. So just a basic overview of myself. So yeah, I'm Rishikesh, as Prashik mentioned already, and these are the areas of cybersecurity that I work in. Yeah, moving ahead. So what this webinar is not about. So we won't be talking about the tools in details and how they're used. That will be out of scope of this webinar. We'll be discussing about the methodologies. This is not very specific to an infrastructure or a platform. Attending this webinar will not directly make you a red team ninja, but it will definitely get you somewhere. It will help you from where you are right now. So yeah, and lastly, this is not just a webinar. This is more of a discussion. So whenever you feel like interrupting me, feel free to do that. It will be more of a discussion round. And yes, this webinar is more for the educational purposes. So yeah, let's start and talk about how to set up a scope for a red team assessment. So what happens is, unlike the normal penetration testing, the scope of a red team is vast. It's almost everything, all the digital assets of an organization that we talk about. So it's more about, it's not about what to include, but more about what not to include, which will be the less part in when we talk about red team engagements. So there are few things that we need to consider while we talk about red team engagement. First is to we should have a proper plan. There should be goals set uh, that needs to be achieved during an assessment. Since a red team assessment can be an overwhelming task because the scope is so vast, and it's almost everything and anything that you can think about to perform in the red team. So yeah, there should be some action plans, some goals set. uh, then there comes the definitive rules of engagement that should be outlined, and we should also note what are the things that are not allowed during the red team assessment. So this happens when the red team assessment is being decided, when the engagement is being decided with the client. So there are few things that needs to be documented first and take note of. So there are few things that are usually out of scope, something like approaching personnel, or let's say there are few applications that are not allowed to be accessed, or even if you find any vulnerability or if you are able to exploit that, they can, if they are out of scope, then they are not considered. So all of this should be already noted. And lastly, the most important thing is if you're performing a physical, so if there is an on-site activity as well available in the red team assessment, then you should also acquire a letter of authorization. So if in case while doing some on-site activities, if you get caught, or if the issue gets escalated, you can have the letter of authorization to clear things out. Yeah. So before we just start the red teaming, this webinar, I just need to get an understanding about how many of you have performed red team assessments, or how many of you are uh, into the technical aspect of the red team assessment, and how many of you are into the operations aspect. So if you could just unmute your mic or just put it in the chat, it would be great. Anyone, guys? Okay. All right, great. Uh, So we've got a mixed audience who has performed pen testing, who has performed some amount of red team, and there are few people who haven't performed pen testing as well. So I believe everyone has something to gain from this. So yeah, in the last webinar we have talked about phases of red teaming, which mostly goes like this. First, there is an information gathering, or recon, or enumeration as we speak. Then there is attack planning, where an attacker, once the attacker gains information, he'll be planning the attack vectors. And once he plans the attack vectors, he finds where are the vulnerabilities, how he can exploit it. And if he finds the if he is able to exploit the vulnerabilities, he will move on to the initial access, where he is able to exploit the vulnerability and gain access to certain, let's say, assets or servers. Then comes weaponization, where he'll be trying to write some exploits, and from within the system or server, he'll try to gain more access. Then there comes command and control, wherein it's basically like a server where from where an attacker can command to all the bots uh, from a single server. So that is command and control. Then comes privilege escalation, where he'll be escalating his privileges from the on the machine where he has already gotten access. Then comes credential dumping, where the credentials of the users to to which the access has been already received, the credentials will be dumped. Then the lateral movement, in which the attacker tries to move in the network and try to gain more devices or servers as possible. Then there's establishing persistence. So once the privileges have been escalated, the attacker tries to make sure that the access is persistent, so that even if the user reboots the machine or turns off the machine, when the machine just boots after turning off, the access will still be there. Then comes data exfiltration, where as much data as possible is exfiltrated from the target's assets. And then defense evasion, wherein the attacker tries to bypass the defenses that are being installed on the target. And then the last part, which is very important as far as the client is concerned and the companies are concerned, that is reporting. So the reporting is the part where all your efforts are seen on the paper. So yeah, reporting is as much important as all the phases of red teaming. Today we'll be talking about information gathering phase only. Um, in the next webinars, we'll be talking about the other phases as well. So yeah, this is a very well-known phrase by Abraham Lincoln, and this has been used a lot in security domain as well. It goes like, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend first 4 sharpening the axe," which means that it shows how important gaining information about a target is. So as much information as we get, it becomes more easy to find the attack vectors, to see how big a ground is to attack or to move forward. So yeah, basically, what is an enumeration? So most of us know that an enumeration is nothing but just finding data, gathering data. So in red team, what happens is enumeration is similar to the normal pen testing enumeration, but just the scope is more. So when we talk about what an enumeration is from red team perspective, it's basically trying to understand the attack surface, so that it'll help us to assess the targets that are available. So yeah, it also helps to extract the user. So enumeration helps to extract the usernames, the machines that are available on the internet, the network resources, some of the services that are being open to the internet, and basically creating an entire attack surface. So basically, there are two types of enumeration or recon. So enumeration is also called as recon or reconnaissance. So there are two types. One is the passive, and the other one is active. So can anyone tell me what is a passive recon? Again, you can unmute yourself or just write it in the chat.
Hello.
Yeah.
So in passive reconnaissance, we gather information about the target without actively interacting with the targets, like the information which we can gather over the internet.
Right. Right. So in passive recon, what we do is we'll make sure that we do not involve the target or the victim, and make sure that we just gain information as much as possible without even the victim knowing, or even the victim is not a part of it when we talk about passive recon. So yeah, here's an overview of passive recon. It's basically an attempt to gain information about the computer's networks, or even more information without engaging with the systems. So there are no alerts that are being raised at the victim's side. And mostly what we do is we get this information from social media platforms like LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. We find some information. So if you're looking for some geographical information, we can also use Google Earth. There are a few tools that help us perform passive recon. So this basically helps us to understand the people. Let's say we are talking about an organization, so this helps us to understand the employees that are working there in an organization, the geographical locations of them as well. So if we are talking about, let's say, LinkedIn, we find people that are working for an organization. We can also find the geographical locations of these employees, right? We can also find the technologies that they're using. Just by doing some passive recon, we understand what kind of technology do they use. Um Similarly, surroundings and environment when we are talking about an on-site enumeration. So yeah, this helps in building or acquiring specific. So this can help us in the future, in the later stages as well, the passive recon. So can you guys give me some examples of passive recon? What are the things that we can do using a passive recon, let's say? Okay, who is lookup, right? We can extract emails, get to know the technologies, right? What else can we do using passive recon? OSINT, yes, uh, pretty much, right. We'll be talking about what an OSINT is later. What all can you guys think about? Let's say you've uh, given a target and you have to find as much information without even the target knowing that there's something going on. Okay, network devices info. Right, email addresses, yes. Wayback URLs, sure. So Wayback URLs, so Wayback Machine is basically a tool that will help you to understand how a site looked like, let's say few years back. So that's a Wayback Machine. Yeah, we can get subdomains as well, right? So the way to get subdomains could be using Google Docs. We can find subdomains. Yeah, we can use Shodan. That will give us the services that are running on the domains that we find. Right, and let's look up. All right. So moving on to active recon. So yeah, this is passive recon. What can we speak of? What can we say about an active recon? What an active recon is? So we spoke about passive recon. Uh, Passive recon is basically doing information gathering without the victim even getting alerted or even known. So yes, active recon is basically now we involve the victim as well here, um, where the intruder engages with the targeted system. So basically, it is achieved by doing some scanning. So when we are scanning the servers, there will be alerts that will be raised at the victim's end. So there is a chance that there will be some noise created, because if you're using some automated scanning tools, it might keep scanning at a very faster rate. So that will create a lot of noise. Again, yeah. So open source intelligence gathering is actually a passive recon, but some part of OSINT can also require, let's say, what I can say, active recon. Let's say, for example, you are viewing someone's LinkedIn page, and so so the so the victim whose LinkedIn page you're viewing will get a notification saying that you viewed their page. So that could be a part of an active recon for OSINT, or open source intelligence gathering. So yeah, what can be the examples apart from port scanning for active recon? So yeah, we have a question: does phishing come under recon? If yes, which type? So if you are doing a phishing, So there are two types of phishing that we can think about. So if you are talking about phishing, that is phishing through phone calls, then that will come in the active recon phase. If you are calling and trying to get information about some of the assets and targets, that would come into the enumeration phase. But if you're trying to fish and try to make the victim access some malicious website, then that would be that wouldn't be a part of an enumeration or information gathering. So yeah, interacting with internal teams, exactly. So that comes a part of active recon. We try to find out what technologies the team is using. Let's say somehow we need to find out what antiviruses does an organization use. There's no way we can do it using passive recon. I mean, there is a way, but very rarely we'll find some information regarding such specifics. So one way would be to somehow engage with the team and try to find out what operating systems they are using, what antiviruses they are using, and how is the network internally designed. All right, moving ahead. So yeah, this is a question to all of you. Now that we know what an enumeration is, why do you think an enumeration is important? Guys, you can unmute yourself. This, as I said before, this is a discussion. We'll be talking, we'll be discussing about things. Right. So enumeration is required to narrow attack surfaces. So yeah, more targets is more attack surface and more chances of exploiting the targets. Sure. In enumeration itself, we can also find vulnerabilities. That those are also called as low-hanging fruits. Sometimes, if just by running some scans, we are finding some vulnerabilities. Yes, to get initial access as well, because the next phase would be to get initial access. Once you are done enumeration, there would be planning and then trying to get initial access. So, do you guys believe that enumeration is one of the most important phase of red team assessment in order to go forward with the assessment? Yes. So now let's talk about the scope of an enumeration. So I think it's pretty logical that uh, the scope of the enumeration will almost be more or less similar to the scope of the assessment itself. So yeah, the although the most important thing is to first understand what the scope of the assessment is, because let's say you found information about some of the assets that are not in the scope, so that won't help you and also waste a lot of your time. So yeah, so to understand the scope of an assessment is very important. So what happens is sometimes the on-site scope is not there. So we need to make sure that we do not engage with the on-site employees or personnel to gather the information. Because what happens is, let's say even if you go out of scope just to get some more information or to get some advantage, later in the report you have to mention how you found some information, right? So if you say that this is how you got the information by approaching some employee of an organization, so that will not be held valid. And if you try to exploit using that information, if you gain access to the system, then there are chances that the entire flow would be discarded. So it's very important to understand what the scope is. So yeah, make a note of things that are excluded from the scope. Sometimes wishing is not included. Wishing is again making phone calls to the organization's employees and trying to get information. If visiting employees' personal addresses and trying to break in their houses just to get into their network, again, that's a very big no-no. So yeah, But mostly passive enumeration is almost always in the scope. Uh, so we can make the most use of it. Yeah. Guys, do you have any questions so far? Feel free to put it in the chat box or unmute yourself. Any questions regarding the scope of the enumeration? So yeah. So the tools about OSINT. So we won't be discussing specifically about the tools for OSINT. We'll be talking about how an OSINT is performed, because honestly there are so many tools that you can use for OSINT, and it makes actually very less sense to involve the tools in this webinar. But yeah, we can discuss about the tools probably in the Q&A. So there was one question, can you explain about the remote services? So which remote services are you talking about? So there are many OSINT tools that are available. We'll mostly discuss them after the webinar. Let's in the Q&A. We can talk about it. Because honestly, if you just Google OSINT tools GitHub, you'll find lots of OSINT tools. There are many. So if you're talking about finding the best ones, they always come up the the searching. So yeah, you will always find them. So yeah, moving ahead from scope of enumeration, the more information we gather, the greater becomes the attack surface, as we have already established now, right? So now comes the enumeration techniques. So there are various ways in which you can enumerate while doing a red team assessment. Before getting into the enumeration techniques, I would want to know from you, what enumeration techniques are you familiar about? So yeah, guys, just write it in the chat box. Let me know what all enumeration techniques can you think about. One is obviously OSINT that we've talked about a lot. We'll be we'll be speaking about it again. Exactly what OSINT is. Yes, subdomain enumeration is there. So we'll be speaking about what subdomain enumeration is, right? Nmap is also there. That will come into the service. Uh, so where we have to find the services that are running. What else can you guys think about? Version enumerations, right? Which is mostly something called as banner grabbing, where we find the versions of the services that are running. That is also a very important thing. We can find if the service is vulnerable to a certain version. Be creative, guys. What else can you think? How can you gain more information? What are the other ways to get more information? One is to get subdomains of the domain that you're finding. Sure, hidden directories, that would go into a bit into a web pen testing, but obviously it's always in the scope. Job listings, sure, that is one way to gain more information, which we can probably leverage later on. The port TLS configurations we can find for weak cipher suits, but these vulnerable or these enumeration techniques should be helpful for later on creating some attack vector. So if you're talking about weak cipher suits, we need to then make sure we are able to perform man in the middle attacks as well. IP address enumeration, right? Absolutely. So if you're talking about some organizations, so let's say we are performing red team assessment for an organization, we need to find all the IP addresses that belong to an organization. All right, let's just move in. So yes, these are the techniques that we'll be discussing about today. One is the open source intelligence, which is OSINT, which we've been talking from the beginning of the webinar. Then there comes social engineering, IP address discovery, as someone mentioned in the chat. Then comes the domain enumeration, service scanning, and on-site information gathering. So we'll be going and we'll be discussing these topics in depth. So yeah, depending on the scope of the assessment, the enumeration techniques can be decided. And then there are again various tools that can be used for almost every enumeration technique. For example, we've been discussing about OSINT tools in the chat for a long time right now. So similarly, there are tools for let's say IP address discovery. There are tools for domain enumeration to find the subdomains. Service scanning tools are very popular, like Nmap, Nessus. There are some. So for on-site information gathering, one needs to do it manually. So yeah, let's talk about open source intelligence. So yes, almost every organization has some digital footprint on the internet. Uh, so basically what OSINT, when we talk about OSINT, we are talking about gaining the information from the publicly known websites, such as LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter. Even Instagram can help for that matter. If an organization has their own Instagram page, we get to know about their day-to-day activities, what basically they're doing. If we find some employees on LinkedIn, we could just take a look at their Instagram handles as well, just to get more information. Facebook can always help to get more activities about some of uh, the targets as well. So does Twitter. So there are some organizations that uses control version systems like GitHub or GitLab to maintain their code. Sometimes what happens is either their code is open source, and sometimes the commits itself could have some of the secrets that were later deleted. But since it's a versioning system, we can just check the commits and find those secrets. And let's say we found some login credentials of an user. Let's say there was a developer who was testing the login using his own credentials, and later in the next commit he removed those credentials. So what we can do is we can go through the commits. We could find some of the credentials using some, so we can run some search for the keywords, and we could find those credentials as well. Similarly, sometimes what happens is, let's say a developer is testing something, he needs to share something, he could use Pastebin to share some code snippets with the fellow colleagues. So what could happen is there could also be some very sensitive information stored in those code snippets. Or sometimes what happens is, since the Pastebin is anonymous, there could be breach dumps on Pastebin that you can find, and we can download them. We can filter them uh, with the organization's name, and we can get some credentials that are already leaked. So these information can be later on used to get the initial foothold. So let's say if we have found the credentials, we can later perform password spraying attack to see if those credentials are working or not. If we find the email addresses, these email addresses could be used to perform the phishing attacks. So let's say while doing some enumeration gathering, you found that the email address has a particular format. Let's say middle first name dot last name @ some organization.com. So if this is the format of an email, what could happen is you'll find out that, okay, this is the first name. Now you've gotten more information about the employee. What you can do is you can create a phishing campaign and send send phishing emails using using their names and to their email addresses with an appropriate mail content. So this is how an attack. This is how the information can help to lead to some attack vectors. And again, there are some websites that can be that you can use to download some of the data breaches data, the breach data. I'm sorry, and then you can again filter them for the organization as well, from where you'll find more credentials. So that is how you can use the open OSINT method. The next one is social engineering, where basically what happens is you uh, communicate with the victim and try to gain information somehow. Let's say, so you can call the victim, you can get information. Sometimes they can give you some sensitive credentials or sensitive information as well. That could be done. You can also send some email saying that the I mean the subject of the email could be need some details from the employee for some XYZ reasons. So that is one of the ways to engage the victim into giving some more informations. Also, sending SMS could work if you have the mobile numbers of the victims. So if it's an on-site social engineering, one could just find out when the employees of an organization come out, let's say for a break, or uh, once they have checked logged out, and then they could communicate with the employees to gain some information. So a use case that I can tell about is, let's say you have to get the email addresses and the name of an employee. So what you could do is you can perform a survey as an attacker with a form, asking them to fill this form for an XYZ survey, and they could help you with it. The other way could be to set up a network in the perimeter of the on-site, and the name of the network could be very much similar to the name of the organization's network, and you could ask them to join this for, let's say, free Wi-Fi, and then sniff over the information, the data or the traffic uh, that we are getting from the ones that connect to the network. So yeah, that could these are the examples of social engineering, and this is what social engineering is. So yeah, any doubts so far, guys? We talked about OSINT, we've talked about social engineering. We'll be talking about IP address discovery. Before that, let me know if you guys have any questions.
If you could mention about some of the websites from where we can access the base data, maybe some non-dark website or some dark web website even.
Websites, okay. Fine. I'll try to find out the websites, and I'll by the end of this webinar I'll put it in the chat, or we'll discuss about it. Sure. Guys, any other questions? All right, then we can move ahead to the IP address discovery. So yeah, there are various ways in which you can get the IP address of the victim. So one would be to perform the subdomain enumeration and to get the IPs of the subdomains. That that is one way to get the IP addresses. The other is to perform ASN lookups to get the IP subnet ranges. So what happens is for the organizations, for the bigger organizations, what happens is they uh, have the block IP address subnets that are assigned to them, that are being used. And so what happens is the attacker can get the entire IP subnet for it. So yeah, there is one website that can be used for it. It is called hackertarget.com. I'll just post the link. Yeah. So if you mention the IP address of the target, you will be able to get the AS name, and you'll find the subnet, the entire subnet as well, range as well. So there's a manual work that you have to do over here. There is no just one tool that will give you the entire information. But again, this comes as a part of passive recon, where you can find all the AS names and all the subnet IPs for the given organization, and then you can perform port scans on almost all the IP addresses, just to find if there is any IP address that was missed while doing subdomain enumeration, and if there are any services running on them. So yeah, again, there are few tools like Dig, or there's Whoislookup, again, to get more information about the organization, the entire organization. There's also a tool, Linux command called host, that will that will resolve the IP address and the mail servers for a given domain that you provide. Sure, ping also works to resolve the IP addresses, but what would happen is ping would resolve to just to one IP address. Sometimes there are C names that are used, so one domain can point to various domains as well, or IP addresses as well. So I've seen that host actually helps for that as well. Again, there's Dig, there's Whois. Nowadays, Whois data is mostly made private. So the data that you see is just dummy data. That's some protection that the organizations use. But nonetheless, it's a way to find more information if the privacy protection is not used. Yeah. So moving forward, we'll talk about domain enumeration. So is there someone who does not know what a subdomain is? So what happens is a subdomain is basically a part of the domain itself. It's just used to organize the data properly, so that we can navigate to it very easily. There are two ways to do that. One is to either use a subdomain and to entirely segregate the data. The other way is to use the paths. Let's say abc.com slash, if you're looking for blogs, then it could be /blog. Instead of that, if you're using a subdomain, it could be blog.abc.com. So these are the ways to just organize the data. But what happens is, if we find subdomains, we can. So mostly what happens is subdomains are also hosted on different IP addresses. So that is one useful thing to use a subdomain. And since every subdomain is mapped to a different IP address, not always, but most of the times, so we get a more attack surface. More IP addresses leads to more servers, leads to more scanning of the services that are running on the servers, and which could lead to, let's say, vulnerabilities if possible. Yeah, there are some of the sensitive subdomains for an organization, such as login pages. So let's say we are talking about a huge organization or even a small one. What happens is every organization needs to log in remotely. Let's say they are using uh, the Office 365. They have got their own login and own SSO. Or let's say if they are using the VPN, they have got their own login page for VPN as well. So if we find these login pages, what would happen is one is either we could bypass those login pages, or we could find the vulnerabilities in those login pages to exploit. Let's say if we found a remote code execution, we'll have the access to those servers where these login pages are served, and we can even get access to the database. And if you're talking about login pages, getting access to the database of a login page, it means we are getting the credentials of the employees. If not that, the second attack vector could be the phishing. So if we are finding the login pages, what we could do is we could use this information to craft a very proper email. Let's say we found the email addresses. We've also found got, let's say, the first name, and then now we are crafting an email in a way that the the victims will click on the email, and then they will land on the malicious web page that we've created, and they can log in. They can try logging in, and we can capture their credentials. So that is also one way. So this is why subdomain enumeration or domain enumeration is very important. So when we're talking about domain enumeration, we also need to know what all domains that does an organization have. It's not that just it will be just one domain. Sometimes there are multiple domains. Also, a pro tip would be to find out if there were any acquisitions done by the organization. To so if the organization acquired some of the other companies, there could be more domains. Of course, it has to be in the scope that needs to be cleared out in the beginning itself. But if there is something like that, then we could consider those subdomains as well. That just increases our attack vector. Yeah. So any queries, guys? Any doubts? All right, we can move ahead. So yeah, now that we've got subdomains, we have got the IP addresses. Now we are ready to do some scanning. We can perform some scan, gain some information from it. So what all information can you get from scans? I'm sure most of you have done scanning, right? You get banner grabbing. So you find the versions that are running. You find open ports. You find services, very importantly. So you find service. You find what version that does the service is running. Uh, and then you find what kind of service it is. You can also get operating system details, right? What else can you find? All right. So yeah, we all know, sure, hidden directories. Once so hidden directories we can talk about once we found that there is a web service running, and then we try to perform the security assessment on that web service. Devices, yes, very important. Basically, once we run the scan of an IP address, we can identify what kind of device it is, whether it's a server or a router, or is it some other device. We can get information about that as well. Mostly that will happen through some educational grade, uh, some guessing will take for it, some smart guessing. Depending on the operating systems we find, depending on the services that are running, we can understand what kind of device it is. So yeah, let's say if there are few services running, let's say if there is MySQL running, if there are SMB shares that are available, or let's say FTP, then we get more attack surface. We know how to perform the security assessment, or how to attack or exploit these services. So if you're talking about FTP, we can go for anonymous login. We can try and find that out. If you're talking about telnet, we can just connect to the telnet server, see if we find anything else. If not, if later on, if we get into the network, we can always sniff on the telnet port, because telnet is not encrypted. If anyone is using telnet for logging, we can get those login credentials as well. Similarly, for SMB, there are many vulnerabilities available. The previous vulnerabilities that could be checked for these SMB ports that are running. And finally, yeah, there are tools like Nmap, Nessus. There's a tool called Nuclei that will help you perform scanning and even finding the vulnerabilities. Final is the final one is the on-site information gathering, where let's say the on-site uh, is also in the scope. The on-site assessment is also in the scope. So what an attacker can do is he can probably just observe and gauge what all activities are happening around the perimeter or the campus. He can gauge when the check-in time is, when do the employees enter the building, when do they come out, let's say for a break, or when do they come out after logging out. He can also check where are the security uh, where are the security in place. Let's say for the CCTV cameras or security guards, he can check. uh, he can also find out which let's say security guards are not that strict, or where the security is lax. He can find out ways to get into the building or the system. He can find the blind spots where the security or the CCTV camera is not present. There's also a chance of dumpster diving. If if some of the paper trash is being thrown out somewhere near the perimeter, he can just look around for some data using that as well. So yeah, any other use cases that you can think of for the on-site information gathering? All right. So what next? Now that we've found information, what how could we how do we move forward? So what so once we've gotten the information using enumeration phase, the attacker can move on to the planning phase, where he's got a lot of information. He has to make sense of all the information. He has to join the dots and figure out how he can move ahead. So that will be the planning phase, and then he'll try to get the initial foothold by performing some by exploiting some of the vulnerabilities that he finds. And yeah, so using that, he once he gets the initial foothold, the other phases of the red team assessment will take in place. So yeah, guys, that is basically it about the enumeration. So yeah, if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. You can unmute yourself, or you can just shoot it in the chat section. Any questions, guys? Next session could be probably in the next month or the month after that. So yeah, I'm planning on taking a session on phishing, which would include tools as well that are used for phishing, and not just a phishing campaign, but also how some of the tools like uh, the Evil Jinx also works along with the phishing tools. So something like that. And yeah, all the sessions will be conducted on Red Team. Uh, Mostly that, so that is the plan right now. Yes, the prior to webinar sessions are all free. Okay, so there are few hardware devices that are available for red teaming in the market. Sure. So, so there are hardware devices from Hack5 that I've come across, like the Land Turtle or the Rubber Ducky. So they are pretty good. Uh, you can program them accordingly. So Rubber Ducky can be used as a secondary keyboard, wherein let's say you get access to a physical location and you're able to get access to a machine. All you have to do is just plug in the Rubber Ducky with all the commands already programmed. and it will do your job like a magic. So yeah, in the pandemic right now, the offsite is mostly out of scope. What happens is it's either an entire digital front, or sometimes if they want to check or if they want to assess their network security, what they do is they give access of the entire internal network through some so they create an account, they give access to the internal network, and from there we can perform our lateral movement. So it's like the initial foothold is already given. Yes, we'll be getting you'll be getting access to this session as well later on. It will be I think the team will mention it on the LinkedIn. For openings in Pi2, I think you can check the Pi2 website where we update for the openings all the time. So yeah, what to do if the target is too strong and attacker did not get information while performing recon? Ideally, that does not happen. If the target is on the internet, you always get some information or the other. It's about how much information you find and how much you can use it. That entirely depends on the experience that you have and the creativity that you can bring out while performing red team. So yeah, it's not that you'll always find vulnerabilities if you are performing, let's say, digital part of the red team assessment. It's not that you'll always find vulnerable servers or vulnerable services running. You have to come up with something creative and make use of it. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining. And let's see. Mostly the next webinar would be on phishing. I'll plan it with the team and let's see how it goes on. All right then. Thank you.
Thanks, Rishikesh.
Thank you for delivering such an insightful talk on insightful and engaging talk on the team assessments. If you have any other queries, you can reach out to Rishikesh on LinkedIn. Also, a big thank you to all the participants who are present here today and for being ever so active. A recording of the full webinar will be later released via our social media. So make sure you're following us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and as well as Twitter for the webinar links and much more. Thank you.